So now, even I don't know this, even though I know you quite well. Are you an author per se, or is this like a one-time book because you had something that you had to say about Al Jolson?
Well, I hope it won't be a one-time book. I'm working on another book right now about the theater and entertainers. But of course, I don't think there'll ever be another book like the book on Jolson because, well, I guess it was a love affair I had, and you have to be in love with a book in order to work on it so many years.
Well, let's explore that now for about 30 seconds. Did you have a love affair with Al Jolson?
No, I wouldn't say it was quite that, except that I idolized him like a lot of kids idolize movie stars and entertainers. And I was very fortunate in knowing him, and knowing him very well, I think.
During the final years of his life?
During the last 10 years of his life, yes. We were pretty close friends.
So far as a little profile, what manner of a man would you say Al Jolson was?
Well, he was a very exciting man, bubbling all the time and vivacious. And I guess he was the eternal Peter Pan. And one of the things that people loved so much about him was his fire for living and this excitement that he generated that appealed both to men and to women. And I don't think men were ever too jealous if their wives sort of had a crush on Joey. But there were so many things about him. He was arrogant, and he was one of the biggest egotists I think anybody could meet. But he had to be that because he believed in himself, and you've got to believe in yourself if you want to accomplish the things that Jolson accomplished. And
was he generous?
He was generous in some instances, not too many, truthfully.
Did he take care of his friends in his will when he died?
No, he didn't take care of his friends. No, he felt, and he often said it to me, that while he was alive, he provided for them very well. And truthfully, even though they were good friends, they made no bones about taking advantage of him or benefiting from whatever he could do for them. And I guess he felt when he died that he wanted to do other things with his money.
Charity.
Yes, he had a lot of faith in education, even though he never was too well educated himself.
Something like $7 million or $14 million? $4 million.
$4 million, which is quite a nice sum. Yes, he left it to all denominations.
And the rest to his wife?
The rest to his wife and to his adopted children. So they'd be provided.
Pearl, just theoretically, if Al Jolson were alive today, would he still occupy that number one niche in entertainment, in your opinion?
Yes, I think so.
Kids wouldn't think he was corny.
I don't think the kids would think he's corny. I think the kids think he's terrific. I have two boys, one 15 in Bethpage High School, and then a little boy in Bloomingdale School. And you should see the kids. It's fascinating to see them sing a Jolson song or mimic him.
I want to hear some more Jolson anecdotes. Our guest is Pearl Seiben, who has written The Immortal Jolson, published by Frederick Fell. And this, if I may make my little prediction, will be a big book eventually. I hope it turns into a Broadway play, and I hear there's a little rumor that Sammy Davis Jr. might play Al Jolson.
Well, we thought it was a good idea.
I love it.
You like it?
Oh, are you kidding?
Oh, good. I think he's the closest to Jolson in exuberance.
We'll hear Jolson sing in just a few minutes with Pearl Seiben. Pearl, I'd like to hear, if we may, a little bit about those magical Sunday night concerts at the Winter Garden that the boys and girls have heard about but never could have seen, of course.
Well, I was unfortunately too young to have seen it, too. But I saw something else, and it was when Jolson was in Hold On to Your Hats on Broadway in about 1940, I guess it was. And he still had that old Sunday night charm, and he'd get in front of the audience at the end of the show and rip open his collar and take off his tie, and he'd sing and sing and sing. And, you know, he had the most sophisticated audience in awe of him. I've seen people get up and go towards the stage that he'd have to lean over and get them to sit down. And people that are well up in the world, too, that usually aren't affected by that.
Al Jolson, on one knee, he brought the whole world to its feet, huh?
I think so.
Hy Gardner had an item in the column about how that one-knee business originated.
Yeah, that's right. It was from the book.
Let's hear the anecdote.
Well, it was a cute little story, and I heard Jolson say it many times.
So we know
that
it's
he
true.
Well, I hope so. But we all fabricate a little bit. Oh, and that's another thing. Jolson, well, he sort of exaggerated. So even all these stories about Jolson, some of them might be true and some might not. But about the toe, he had an ingrown toenail. One night it was paining him an awful lot. And he bent down because he couldn't stand up much longer on the stage. And that's how that one knee got put into his repertoire of the hand clapping and the sucked-in cheeks and the rolling eyes and everything that made up Jolson.
When did Al Jolson die?
In 1950, October 23rd.
Is that when your book ends?
Well, I like to think that the book never ends because the end of the book, from what people have told me from reading it, it sends the rights to their record album, and that can be 3 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning. And I think that's part of the magic of Jolson, that you want more of him. The more you get, the more you seem to want to hear.
If he had lived, I would have liked to see a third picture. The first one was called The Jolson Story, then Jolson
Sings Again.
And the third one should have been called Jolson Sings Forever.
Yes, well, maybe there will be a third picture. When he died, he was working with Norman Krasner and Jerry Wold on the third picture, and I had spoken to him on the phone, and he was very excited because in this picture, Jolson was going to play Jolson, and that really meant a lot to him. And contrary to what people thought, he liked Larry Parks, and Larry Parks did a terrific job at imitating Jolson, but it was quite a blow to his ego that he couldn't play Jolson himself.
He didn't resent Larry Parks?
No, he didn't resent him. He worked with him a long time to get him to perfect his style. But the voice was Jolson. And there was one segment in the picture that was Jolson.
You saw him for one split second?
That's right, on the runway when he sang Swanee. He was made up in blackface. I couldn't do too much damage.
That's like Alfred Hitchcock taking a little surprise appearance in his picture.
And you know, it's fascinating. Not many people know about that, but I spotted him in a minute because even though he hated to admit it, he had a little pot belly.
Pearl Seiben, who had a secret crush on Al Jolson before you married your own husband.
Yeah. Not too secret.
No, not too secret. In just a moment, my friends, Al Jolson sings one of his unforgettable interpretations of a song called Where Did Robinson Crusoe Go with Friday on Saturday Night. Right now.
Thousands of years ago, or maybe more, out on an island on a lonely shore, Robinson Crusoe landed one fine day. No rent to pay, no wife to obey. His good man Friday was his only friend. He didn't borrow or lend. They built a little hut, lived at the Friday, but Saturday night it was shut. Where did Robinson Crusoe go with Friday on Saturday night? Every Saturday night they were starting to roam, and on staggering home on this island live wild men in cannibals grinning. And where there are wild men, there must be wild women. Where did Robinson Crusoe go with Friday on Saturday night? Where did Robinson Crusoe go with Friday on Saturday night? Every Saturday night they were starting to roam, and on Sunday morning they come staggering home. They went hunting for rabbits when the weather grew colder, but Crusoe came home with a hair on his shoulder. Where did Robinson Crusoe go with Friday on Saturday night?
That's our boy who sang that, huh?
Yes, Mr. Jolson. Al.
Do you think he's watching or listening today?
No, if he tuned into television. He might be. You know, in 1932, the Bell Telephone Company had him sing Sonny Boy for television, and he thought it was a terrific idea. But not many people went along with him. He said he should stick to radio. That was the common trend.
You're watching Memory Lane every day from 12:30 to 1:30. Yours truly, Joe Franklin, hosting. We're chatting with Pearl Seiben. Coming up, our little...
Work is done, coming home to the setting sun. From the gate, you've got to run, and then, oh, I'll kiss my boy. Dirty hands, dirty face, little devil, that's what they say. But to me, he's an angel of a joy. Wait a minute, heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I said it. You ain't heard nothing.
Legend in his own time. Hello, I'm Joe Franklin. From the people who knew him, from the scenes and songs he made famous, a picture of the man, Al Jolson, in perspective. All the world knows his name, yet he came from such obscurity that he never himself knew his own birth date. Years later, he chose a birthday. He chose May 26th because he loved springtime. Here, then, are the brief facts of Al Jolson's early life. He was born Asa Yeolson in approximately 1883 in the village of Serednik in Russia, in a log cabin. The Yeolsons had been cantors for generations. Asa's father rebelled and ran away from home to become an opera singer. He failed, and he did become a cantor. Years later, he faced this same rebellion when his own son refused to become a cantor and ran away to become a jazz singer, but his own son succeeded. When Jolson was 9, he came to this country to join his family in Washington. They lived on the second floor of this building. It was above a feed store. His father sang in this synagogue. The early years, my friends, were uneventful. Poverty hounded the family. Schooling was erratic. His playground was the streets, and in the streets, he earned his first pennies, singing and dancing. When he was 10, he received a shock that influenced him for the rest of his life. He saw his mother die in childbirth. The scene, the memory, the loss haunted him to the very end. The word mother became a symbol. Mammy, mother of mine. The sentiment was genuine. The first moment that the movies spoke, it was with Al Jolson's voice speaking to mother.
Steal something. I'll give it back to you someday, too. You see if I don't. $10? Oh, I'm going to take you to Coney Island.
Yeah?
Yes, I'm going to ride on the shoot-to-shoot.
Oh.
And, you know, in the dark mill.
Yeah?
Ever been in the dark mill?
No, I was...
Well, with me it's all right. I'll kiss you and hug you, you see if I don't. Now, Mama, stop now.
Well, from the day of his mother's death until his own, Jolson's life was turbulent. And from that day, too, his career began on the streets as a singing waiter in saloons. When he was 14, his vaudeville career began in earnest. With Fred Moore, he formed a team of song illustrators. They touted themselves as introducers and promoters of high-class ballads and popular songs. You'll notice that Jolson borrowed his brother's name, Harry. It was several years later that he changed his name to Al Jolson. The next 10 years of Al Jolson's life were spent in cross-country vaudeville one-night stands. He ran the gamut of his trade: chorus, burlesque, blackface, bit parts, solo spots, end man in minstrel shows.
You know, you haven't explained who did pay the rent for Mr. Van Winkle. I know, Westy, I don't know. I didn't pay the rent for Mr. Van Winkle. But the way you look to me today, somebody ought to pay the rent for you, because I never seen you look so worried in my life. What do you mean? Well, I mean, I'm just telling you, you look bad. You look like something's wrong with you. Well,
In Lou Dockstatter's famed minstrel show, Jolson developed and perfected the style that marked his performances later. His repertoire, his mastery, his command of an audience grew, and with it grew his reputation. He was ready for the big time. The summer of 1909 marked the turning point in Jolson's life. He was heading for New York, and he was about to be discovered. His discoverer, one of our great men, ladies and gentlemen, a truly senior citizen of Times Square, a keen, astute observer of the passing parade for more than half a century, a man under whose masterful guidance many a star first saw light, agent, producer, and elder statesman of Broadway, Arthur Klein.
I first met Al Jolson in the year 1907. I was a boy singer at that time, and Jolson was working in a trio called Jolson, Palmer, and Jolson. He went along and played a small time for long before he was recognized. I heard about it again 3 or 4 years later. I went down to Texas in a small motion picture theater to catch him doing his act, a single act. Black bass, white socks, straw hat, brimless. And the man electrified me. I took a long trip. There were no planes in those days. This is the year 1909. I took a 4-day train, dusty through Mexico and Texas. And I thought he was a tremendous performer. I left, came back to New York, and later on, I met him after he was in the minstrel show. The minstrel show disbanded. And I said, upon the disbandment of the minstrel show, I'd like to sign you as manager. There are great things in store for you. First of all, I'd have you in vaudeville. You're a great artist. I know a lot of people have got their eyes on you, but this is the first time you're going to get a chance. So I signed a 10-year contract with him. 10 years, at the old Faust Cafe on Columbus Circle. Now, the first thing is I say with Jolson, when I signed this contract with him, I had him in vaudeville. He played the big theaters. Got $250 a week. The first contract with the Jolsons, with the Dockstadters Minstrels, was $150 a week in his life's railroad fare. That's quite a distance from today. And then I booked him in the vaudeville theaters at $250. That was the first big jump from $150 to $250. He invariably would play 3 or 4 theaters and make a lot of money because the money compounded, you see. Now, after that, I had one idea, is to get Jolson on Broadway. So I immediately contacted Mr. J.J. Schubert, who owned the Winter Garden. But there was no Winter Garden at the time. They were booking it. They were billing it from a theater, from a horse exchange to a theater. This was quite a transformation. And in that time, they were redecorating this theater. I signed Jolson with the Schuberts, against their wish. They didn't think he'd be a big hit on Broadway because he was a vaudeville performer and blackface. But my persistence and the faith that I had in him, they finally signed a contract. Opening night, Jolson was very, very sad about this. He never was happy about the Winter Garden and said I had no right to sign a contract there because it's too big a place. He was happy in vaudeville and making much more money. But I signed him and he opened. He didn't have his heart in his work. That night he was an absolute failure. I never saw a great artist with such personality and magnetism have such a tremendous loss for his ability. That opening night he was a terrific failure. I was disappointed, of course, but he was vindicated because he knew, he felt he wouldn't be a big hit at that theater. Now it comes to the time when I remember his first big hit, this song. We changed the time, and he came out there the next day, which was the first matinee on the Thursday, and he came on after, I suppose the curtain was up about 35 minutes. It came on like a shot out of a cannon, and I remember his first song, which, by the way, was his favorite song, called Rum Tum Tiddle.
Willie Wingle rode a jingle on his little team. Dolly Dimple, sweet and simple, said play it for me. There's a feeling, comes a feeling, where that melody say. Just sounds silly, but go on, Willie. I love to hear you play it, play it. Rum tum tum, tum tiddle was a tune he played. On his fiddle and melodious tune, just seemed to groove. Honey love, honey love, honey love. Round my heart, you raise the riddle and begin to lie. In the middle of the musical strain, won't you play it again?
Well, now, Jolson came along, and in those days, you must remember, there were no microphones. This man had the most resonant voice of any human being that I ever heard. I think next to him was Caruso. There were no microphones in those days. And he kept on, and as I say, I sat there, I stood in the back of the theater, generally at the Winter Garden, and had my hands in the back of me and held on to the brick wall, and I could hear the brick shake with vibration. With vibration, without a microphone.
Climb upon my knee, funny boy. Though you're only free, funny boy. You've no way of knowing, there's no way of showing what you mean to me, funny boy. When there are gray skies, I don't mind the gray skies. You make them a blue, funny boy. Friends may forsake me, let them all forsake me. I still have you, honey boy. You're a sent from heaven, and I know your worth. You
Al Jolson in 1929. Jolson admirers will always remember Al's sentimental interpretation of Sonny Boy, and nobody who ever saw The Singing Fool can ever forget that handsome little boy to whom Al Jolson addressed that song. His name was Davy Lee, and here is the grown-up Davy Lee.
When I met Al Jolson, well, I guess it must have been a press agent's dream at that time, but it was all true. At that time, my older brother, Frankie Lee, was working in a movie with the great silent film star, Lon Chaney, and I went down to the lot with my mother. Well, at that time, they'd been looking for a Sonny Boy for some time, sort of like they spent a long time looking for Lolita. And when I got down there, why, Al Jolson saw me, and apparently I must have looked the way he's pictured Sonny Boy looking. So he picked me up, he carried me into the casting agent's office, and he put me down on his desk, and he said, "I found my Sonny Boy." Couldn't have been better if it hadn't been written, but it really happened. Now, there's a lot of things I could say about Al Jolson here today, but I know they're going to be said, and have been said, better by the wonderful performers that are on here with me today. There's one thing they couldn't possibly know, and that's that Al Jolson and Eve were very bony. And then there's another personal thing I'd like to bring up. But this happened to be after I'd grown up, and it'll give you an insight into what a great man this man really was. I went to him after I got out of the Army, after World War I, and I said, "Mr. Jolson, I want to go back into show business." Now, I don't know whether many people know this, but Uncle Al was a little self-conscious that he had never had any real, honest-to-goodness, solid schooling. So he told me, he says, "Davy," he says, "you go back to school, you get a degree, so you'll have something to fall back in, and come and see me with the degree, and I'll help you all I can." He died during my senior year, but I'll always remember what he told me, and I'll never forget it, believe me. So all I can say is, as far as I'm concerned, there never was a greater entertainer than Al Jolson, and I think the one reason that made him great was that I've never seen anybody that put everything into every word and every song that he sang.
One of Al Jolson's best friends, one of his very best friends, was Irving Caesar, the songwriter. Irving wrote many of Jolie's ranking hits, but I did not come to praise Caesar because the world of music has bountifully done that.
You know, Al was very volatile. He was very temperamental, and he changed like the weather. I always recall once in a taxi cab in California, he had brought me out to California to work on Hallelujah, I'm a Bum. And we were taxiing from Hollywood into Los Angeles to his lawyer's offices, as I remember. And he kissed me in the cab, and he says, "Cookie," he says, "you're always fighting with me." And you had to fight with him, because if you didn't fight with him, you were nowhere with him. You had to fight with him every few days. You had to pick a little fight to exhibit your own strength. He said, "You're always fighting with me," and he kissed me. He says, "You know I love you." Well, within 4 hours, he broke my heart. Of course, he mended it again 4 days later, and finally I had to say to him one day, I said, "Al, look, let me tell you something." And I lived with the fellow, you know. I knew him very, very well. I said, "Al, I tell you something. Your word or your love is about as useful as the light of a lightning bug if I were going to sit down and read the Bible by it. You mean what you say when you say it, but it doesn't last long enough until you come back to it again someday." But we were friends all through the years. In Wunderbar, which was an unorthodox type of play, and that's why I like to talk about it, I made him sing in many languages. And that in itself required a struggle. I lived with him at the Ritz Towers Hotel for a month while we were in rehearsal, because I couldn't read German. I could read French. I couldn't read Russian, but I had a good ear. And I studied these songs because they were songs that were meant to be sung in Wunderbar, a song like Donna Clara, for example. And I'll never forget how wonderfully he learned them all by ear. You know, Donna Clara's, "Oh, Donna Clara, I saw you dancing tonight." And he sang it in German, "Oh, Donna Clara, ich hab dich tanzen gesehen, und deine Schönheit hat mich so gemacht." You'd think he was a Dutchman. or a German. And then he sang it in French. Oh, Donna Clara, je dis, mon idéal en toi, enfin je vis. And I had him sing in Russian. He sang, and you know, Chaliapin told me and told Mara's guest and told Al that if Al had studied, he would have been one of the great baritones of our time. And incidentally, Chaliapin loved Al, and Al loved Chaliapin. Very often, Fyodor would come up to the Winter Garden or to the Nora Base Theater where we played, and Al would put him in the wings. And Chaliapin would throw kisses at him because he admired Al's performance so much. And to reciprocate, very often, Chaliapin brought Al down to the Metropolitan Opera House, and he put him in the wings. And then they'd meet afterwards, and Chaliapin would say, Al, you have no matinee tomorrow? I have no matinee too. I have good vodka, I have caviar, Al. We go to my apartment, we have champagne, you bring maybe 6 or 8 nice girls, we have music, we have a wonderful time. And Al would go. No day is complete when I talk of Jolson without my thinking of another person who meant so much to Al and so much to me, Gershwin. Because George and I had our first hit because Jolson was on Earth. A lot of people think we wrote Swanee for Jolson. Well, that isn't just so. It would be romantic to say so, but it isn't so. We wrote Swanee for the Capitol Theater Demi-Tasse Review, which had first gone up on Broadway, the Capitol Theater, that is. And 60 girls danced to it with electric lights in their shoes. Arthur Pryor's band of 60 played it. Everyone sang it. There were thousands of copies in the lobby, and nobody bought a copy. And this went on for about 4 weeks, and everyone said it should be a hit, but the publisher said, boys, it isn't commercial. What can you do? It's a great song. I love it too, but forget it. You'll write another song someday. So along came Buddy DeSilva, another great songwriter who wrote California Here I Come with Joe Meyer. And Buddy invited George to a party that Al was giving over on Central Park West. And at the party, he generously suggested to George that he should play Swanee for Al, which was a nice gesture on the part of Buddy. Well, George played Swanee for Al. Within 4 days, Al Goodman arranged it. He was his conductor. And believe it or not, this is before radio and television. Within a fortnight, it swept the country. And I'm happy to say that it's still alive. And to the best of my ability, not doing it justice, of course, I'd like to sing Swanee for you, just a chorus. Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. I'd give the world to be among the folks in DIX. I even know my mammy waiting for me down by the line.
North will see me no more when I get to that Swanee shore. I love the old folks at home, oh, Swanee. How I love you, my dear old Swanee. The folks up north will see me no more when I get to that Swanee shore.
Waiting for me, praying for me, down by the Swanee. You folks up north will see me no more when I get to that Swanee. Oh, take it away.
Al Jolson was inimitable. He was unique. By the mid-20s, his popularity was just immense. He was billed, rightfully, as the world's greatest entertainer. Other performers used Jolson to further their own careers. They parodied Jolson, they imitated Jolson, but Jolson was inimitable. Nobody could quite duplicate a performance like this.
Tootsie, goodbye. Tootsie, don't cry. The little choo-choo train that takes me away from you. You don't know just how sad it makes me. Kiss me, kitty, and then, ow, ow, do it over again. Watch for the mail, I'll never fail. If you don't get a letter, then you know I'm in jail. Hey, hey, don't cry, Tootsie, don't cry. Kiss me, Tootsie, goodbye.
Of those who came closest to capturing that indefinable Jolson magic was a great musical comedy headliner in his own right, a man who started in show business with Eddie Cantor and Georgie Jessel and Walter Winchell in Gus Edwards' Kid Cabaret, but who later switched from Broadway to another street, to Wall Street. A close friend and professional associate of Jolson's, the incomparable Georgie Price.
Hit it. Tootsie, goodbye. Tootsie, don't cry. The choo-choo train that takes me away from you. No words can tell how sad it makes me. Kiss me, Tootsie, and then, do it over again. Send for the mail. I never fail. And if you don't get a letter, then you know I'm in jail. Tootsie, goodbye. Tootsie, don't cry. That's as near as I can remember Al. But you know, I've been doing this since I was 9 years old. In fact, that's when I first met Al. We were working together on the bill at Hammerstein's Victoria. And of course, I always considered him my idol, just as the young singers today look up and want to sing like Frank Sinatra. I always wanted to make out like a Jolson. And he took a great shine to me because, well, he always claimed that I was the fella who could imitate him better than anyone else. But he had such tremendous ego. Even when I was 10 years old, someone gave me a memory book. And I asked Al to be the first one to put his autograph in there and to say something nice. And he wrote the first little autograph that I had in the book, and it said, "As an imitator of me, you are great, you bet. But if you ever steal any of my jokes, you ain't heard nothing yet." Now, there are many things have been said about him. I suppose in order to be great like Jolson, you have to have that ego. And a lot of people have said he wasn't very charitable. Well, I happen to know better. He was very charitable, but some peculiar reason of his own, he was always ashamed of his charities. Now, there are so many fellas today who make a whole racket out of charity. They get $1 million worth of publicity as head of one charity or another, but Jolson never wanted that kind of publicity, and in fact, he never even wanted anyone to know what charities he was doing. Now, one of the stories, crazy stories about Jolson, big lie, was a story about his brother Harry. Now, Harry
didn't have Al's fire. He had a sort of a high tenor voice, and although he worked with Al for a while, he was just not the dynamic performer that Al was, and he never could quite make it. So he used to go around telling everybody that the reason he isn't up in the big time is that Al is holding him down. Well, now, that wasn't true at all. I happen to know that Al went up to the United Booking Office, and he said to them, I don't want my brother Harry to know, but please, I want you to book him. I'll give him all my orchestrations, all my jokes, everything, all my songs, and then whatever you pay him, I'll pay half of his salary, but please don't tell him. And he never did find out. And until the day he died, he went on saying that Al was holding him back. Now, I happen to know many, many charities that Al did, but a peculiar reason he didn't want anybody to know about it. Well, of course, all of us are just like a lot of little pygmies compared to Al when it comes to talent. It's been about, well, almost 12 years since he's gone, and no matter how long he'll be gone, this is the one great talent, believe me, that no one will ever forget.
Despite his terrible ego, despite all his faults, Al Jolson's continued popularity still shows his magic, a magic that exists to this day. Young people who never could have seen him in his heyday still form Al Jolson fan clubs. His records remain high on the popularity lists. And still today, the world over, when performers are on the verge of achieving greatness, the yardstick of that greatness is still to be compared with Al Jolson. And Jolson, at the height of his fame, took Hollywood by storm. Success crowned success. The Jazz Singer, The Singing Fool, Say It With Songs, Mammy, Big Boy, Hallelujah, I'm a Bum, Wonder Bar, Go Into Your Dance, The Singing Kid, Rose of Washington Square, Swanee River, Rhapsody in Blue. Leading ladies came and went in a steady parade. Dolores Del Rio in Wonder Bar. Mae McAvoy had the lead in The Jazz Singer, and Ruby Keeler, more than a leading lady to Al, his wife, was in Go Into Your Dance. Madge Evans in Hallelujah, I'm a Bum. Alice Faye in Rose of Washington Square. Joan Leslie in Rhapsody in Blue. And Beverly Roberts in The Singing Kid. In her first celluloid appearance, ladies and gentlemen, Beverly had the good fortune to appear as Al Jolson's leading lady in The Singing Kid. Her impressions of the star, I think, should be most interesting. And a lovely lady over here, a very talented singer and actress who starred on Al Jolson's radio series and was greatly admired by Al Jolson, Miss Carol Bruce. Hiya, Carol.
Hi, Joe.
How are you, Beverly?
Couldn't be better, Joe.
We might subtitle this little segment, Jolson from the Woman's Angle, or the women in Jolson's life. You were professionally involved, both of you, in Jolson's
Glad you said that.
Glad I qualified that.
Yes,
What were your reactions upon being signed up? What was the immediate feeling upon being signed to co-star with the old master?
Well, funny enough, Joe, the first time I met Jolson, I wasn't very impressed. I know that sounds kind of odd because he was never a pallid personality. He always had a lot of impact on people. But you see, I happened at that particular moment to be in a state of high dudgeon because I had been rushed to the makeup department and told that I was to do a test for the Jolson picture, and they dashed me through so fast that they brought me onto the set with my hair still dripping wet. And as you saw in that picture at that time, I had very, very short, curly hair. And the result was that the director, Bill Keeley, took a look at me and said, well, what are we wearing for hair this season? Mouse's nests? And I was so insulted that when he turned 2 seconds later and said, Miss Roberts, I want you to meet Mr. Jolson, I said, how do you do, Mr. Jolson? And I turned to Mr. Keeley and I said, well, if you don't like it, you can jolly well send me back to the makeup department and let me get dry in the proper way before dragging me down here. and I shot off like a firecracker.
I can see why she always played a woman executive. She always played a woman executive, always with Beverly Roberts has
woman
authority.
knew her mind.
Well,
has
let's
authority.
face it, I was insulted to every single inch of my teenage femininity, you know? I mean, you just don't say that to a lady, let's face it.
Beverly, we've heard conflicting reports.
Of course, Jolie never had this problem with his hair.
Yes, I
No,
do.
he was awfully nice about it, though, Joe. Just let me finish this, because he roared. Because, let's say, I just come on the set. I was only a youngster, and this is my first test and my first picture, and he was one of the greatest stars in the world. And it amused him heartily. In fact, I'm absolutely convinced that this is a major reason I got the part, because Jolson was so amused at my indignation and the firecracker quality, you see.
Was
At any
he-
rate, he was very sweet, and he said, don't let it worry you, kid. You look fine. And we went right on and
He was
did it.
nice.
Yes, he was
sweet.
very nice about that.
Was he self-centered, or was he cooperative? Did he just care about his own role, or did he work with the cast?
Well, Jolson was always a trooper. I know Carol can substantiate that, and anybody who's ever worked with Jolson will tell you the same thing, that he was always, first and foremost, a professional. He was, of course, self-centered. He was also dynamic and volatile and exciting, and a person who in every way was larger than life. And I think all performers, in a sense, have to be self-centered, Joe, because otherwise, don't you agree, Carol?
I positively do. There is no other way.
How on earth can you possibly, unless you are, and that
If you are not some form of an exhibitionist, you'd be the other side of the footlight.
exactly, and you can't get out and expect even one person to focus their attention on you unless you have some sort of inner self-centeredness. It's impossible.
Well spoken. Carol Bruce, ladies and gentlemen, sang for 39 weeks. She was co-starred, if that's the phrase, on Al Jolson's radio show, and she naturally had the chance to observe him very closely. And let's have some Carol Bruce reminiscence, may we?
Well, I find myself in a very strange position, Joe, after hearing the great people that have been on paying tribute to Jolie, Al, Mr. Jolson, Irving, Caesar, Georgie Price, A.B. Lee, the little boy, Sonny Boy, and all of this. Mine is from a slightly different angle. It's not a question of anecdotes or funny experiences. It's an overall picture, Joe. It was probably, for me, I think, one of the most memorable things in my entire career. If I never had anything else, I'd be happy for those 39 weeks. Because there, at that time, well, there were no acting schools, so to speak. I'm sure there were some teachers around, and so our training ground was whatever we did at the moment. We had to make a living and work. And I can't think of a better training ground than 39 weeks with Mr. Jolson, because 39 minutes would have been sufficient. But standing up and watching this man week after week get up there and pretend that that little microphone just didn't exist. I mean, they were just people. People were the only thing that really fascinated him in the world. And as people before me and Beverly have said, he had a fantastic ego, but aside from the ego, which was kind of beautiful, you forgave him for it, the one big word I find myself constantly identifying the man with is heart, H-E-A-R-T, in capital letters. As long as you had a heart, I can forgive any ego. And I think being, well, to me, the world's greatest entertainer, and I hope there are no brickbats going to be thrown at me for this.
No,
I don't think
they could be.
I don't think it's any secret that there were.
I think the thing that makes a person great is the element of being like the great clowns, the tragedian, who can make you either laugh or cry within inside of the same 5 minutes. And he has mostly succeeded in making me cry. I don't know what there was about the man's quality, but all he had to do was open his mouth, and I got a large lump in my throat, and it's been the same way to this minute.
I said that we were subtitling this, The Women in Jolson's Life. Now, I don't think it's any secret that Jolson was married several times. It was brought out in the movies. And even after he was crooned out of the spotlight by Crosby and Colombo and Valley, he still was very attractive to the women. Was he magnetic? Was it his personality? How would you try and describe the Jolson appeal?
I knew a little bit about the, Casanova side of him, if you want to call it that.
That's where we go.
There was that side to Jolie, again going along with this great thing that he managed to convey. There was a kind of, it was an animal magnetism at times. This was not especially attractive man. He was terribly attractive, of course, to all people.
But he was
because
not
of
a
the spirit.
matinee idol.
But this is not a matinee idol type,
Oh, no,
and yet
good heavens,
women, believe me, flipped
for this man. And I was quite young, too, at the time, because he had me with him at almost the outset of my career. And I was rather thrilled one night when Al asked me out to dine with him. It was quite an experience. Matter of fact, he told me what he would like me to wear that evening.
More than one night, I've been told. But I don't want to break in. I don't want to break in.
But we went out on the town. Of course, I was terribly impressed. He took me to the very chic places in New York. We dined, we danced, and I guess my jaw hung open for most of the evening. I wasn't particularly attractive that night, but he was on stage every minute, and I loved every minute of it. He was even a performer out in public, you know that. He was never off.
There is one quality, one phrase, which I think could always be applied to Al Jolson more than to most other people that I've ever known in my life, and I've known some pretty big stars, as you have, Carol. He was larger than life in the real theatrical sense. There was never anything about him, no matter what anybody might say about him, good or bad, he was never small about anything that he did. And I think this is one of the things that probably I remember most about him, because looking back now, I feel to myself, and you must feel this too, Carol, that it was rather a remarkable thing for a man who was as great a star as he was, and even though he was not at that moment at the height or at the peak of his eminence, he still had a tremendous career behind him, to accept as his leading lady a raw kid from nowhere. I mean, I think this takes a pretty big performer.
The romantic appeal was there. They didn't shriek maybe the way they shrieked over Elvis Presley or Frank Sinatra, but as you pointed out...
But believe me, those ladies waited in the alley of the radio theater, and they waited
and to make it
half swooning, believe me.
And to make it even nicer, the men liked him too. The men didn't resent this.
Oh, no, he didn't inspire resentment of that kind from men, because he was he was a guy's guy, and a woman's guy.
Carol Bruce sang for 39 weeks on the radio, many duets on the Jolson Show with Jolie, still a great, brilliant musical comedy artist, and Miss Beverly Roberts, then and now a wonderful leading lady, currently an executive with Theater Authority.
That's right, Joe. Yes,
Still
I'm having my longest run.
Two of the ladies, in quotations, in Jolson's life. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We often forget his not inconsiderable ability as an actor. Possibly he was not a very subtle artist. Some people called it hamminess, maybe overplaying. But when he appeared on that movie screen, his magnetism riveted the audience's attention.
Tough, Al. My wife just gave birth to her 5th baby, and I give you my word, I told her if she had another kid, I'd shoot myself.
I wouldn't do it if I were you. You might be shooting an innocent man. Ah, Captain.
You certainly are happy, Al. Must have had a good day at the track.
Oh, baby.
You certainly must get some good tips.
Ah, tips, nothing. I play hunches. And here's a funny thing. Talk about a hunch. I went to bed last night, had a most peculiar dream. I kept dreaming about hats. And I went to track, and sure enough, I bought a program as a horse runner named Hattress. And I put a bet on him. And who do you think won?
Who?
Chapeau. How are you folks?
You're pretty happy tonight, Al,
Oh,
aren't you?
boy, am I happy.
Well, I'll put a stop to that.
Why, what's wrong?
Edith and Harry aren't here yet.
How about the show?
No show yet.
Well, I'll tell you what you do. You cut out the dance number, see, and put me on first.
But what about Harry?
What about Harry? The minute he gets here, I'm going to fire him.
Oh, you always say that.
Yeah, well, this time I mean it. The moment he shows his mug at here, he's going to find it right out on the sidewalk.
Yeah, you do anything like that, and you lose Enos, too.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have a long talk with him tonight. She's too nice a kid to let me down for firing a rat like that.
Maybe.
Mugging, wisecracking, and fast whip is second nature to Al Jolson.
Come here. Madame, we love to have you here.
Oh, Monsieur Al, you tickle me.
I can't now, Madame. I gotta go on. Oh, you little gedempter Rinderbrus. I thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I want to apologize for our show being a little late in starting. But the truth of the matter is our...
Behind this facile performer was a man of many tones, many moods, many contradictions. He has been called so many things: egotist, braggart, selfish, a man with a great heart, unusually charitable, mean, a callous playboy, a demon for work, hard, tender, temperamental to the point of closing a show on a whim. Well, he was all of these things, of course. He was also afraid of many things. Let's meet a close friend of his, a fashioner of many Jolson song hits, Dave Dreyer. Dave knew this.
I remember Al Jolson as a great human being, as well as a great entertainer. Very human, very intense person. But he had one terrific failing. It was not a fail, it was a human failing.
He had a terrifying fear of losing his voice. Strangely enough, though, he never did never did have any voice trouble, but he had always had that petrifying something about him. He was afraid when he would walk out on the stage, he'd reach for a note and it wouldn't be there. As a result of that, when he would get out on the stage and he would sing and he found his voice there, you couldn't get him off the stage. He just loved to sing. But he's still worried about his voice. Anytime anybody would tell him about new voice doctor, could be in Afghanistan or any place, he would go to see what this doctor had to offer.
Jolson was afraid of failure. This was his greatest fear. He was afraid that others might be as good or better than he. He was afraid he would die alone with no one at his side, just as it did happen. At times he was afraid, too shy to speak. Another friend of Al's right now, one of our most beloved and respected performers, can tell us something about that. Here's Rudy Valley.
Way back in not way back, very recently, comparatively recently, in 1940, Jules Stein asked me to go to the Arrowhead Springs Hotel, which he and Joe Skank and a bunch of others had taken over and spent millions to redecorate. Had a big opening night, and one of the owners was one of the Paleys, one of the brothers of CBS, and they had a broadcast going from that place, Arrowhead Springs, to Chicago, no further. They had Mickey Rooney, Jolson, and two or three other personalities, and a little girl singer that I was sponsoring at the time, Eileen Schools, who was in Best Foot Forward later on. And they asked me to MC it, and I didn't have any amplifying of the broadcast. They couldn't hear what I was saying. Ruby Keeler was seated at a table far away from the microphone, and I made this beautiful eulogy, delivered this eulogy about Jolson, what he meant to the show world, how great he was, how thrilling his voice was, and how we regarded him in show business as one of the greatest talents of all time. There's Winter Garden one-man shows. When I finished it, when the show was over and the broadcast was over, it was about a half-an-hour show, as I recall, I was seated at my table, and Jolson came over and asked me to come over. He said, "Would you come over to Ruby Keeler's table and tell her what you said about me on the air?"
Al Jolson's life, with all his triumphs, had its full measure of fear, uncertainty, and tragedy. The death of his mother when he was young, the mental collapse of his first wife, the death of his second wife, the failure of his marriage to Ruby Keeler, his inability to have a son of his own. It wasn't until his final marriage to Earl that his personal life blossomed into a serene and golden happiness. Al Jolson died in 1950 of a heart attack, as much a casualty of the Korean conflict as any fighting man. The doctor said that he sang and sang his heart out, and that was it. And this meant more to him than all the millions he earned and left to charity. Al Jolson was a great man because he brought a great joy, a great sense of life and vitality to a great multitude of people, and he hasn't stopped yet. When he died, Jack Benny said this:
"To us, whom Al has left behind, time has been unusually kind. It has helped erase the sorrow of his passing, yet has left his memory a bright and living thing. His great gift to mankind, his voice, is with us now and forever." Before I finish, I'd like you to know that 8,000 miles from here, nestled in the hills of Korea, is an outdoor amphitheater where our troops are entertained. This amphitheater is within a few miles of the disputed 38th parallel, and it is called the Al Jolson Bowl. To those boys 8,000 miles away who gather there every day, the memory of Al Jolson, as with us, will never die.
In a moment, we'll let Jolson speak for Jolson in the way that he knows best, in songs.
I've been away from you a long time. I never thought I'd miss you so. Somehow I feel your love is real. Near you I want to be. The birds are singing, it is song time. The banjo strumming soft and low. I know that you yearn for me too. Swanee, you're calling me. Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. I'd give the world to be among the folks in DIXI I even know my mammy's waiting for me, praying for me down by the Swanee. The folks up north won't see me no more when I get to that Swanee shore. I love you, folks at home. Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. I'd give the world to be among the folks in DIX. I even know my mammy's waiting for me, praying for me down by the Swanee. The folks up north won't see me no more when I get to that Swanee shore.
If I could be with you, I'd love you strong. If I could be with you, I'd love you long. I want you to know I wouldn't go until I told you, baby, why I love you so. And if I could be with you 1 hour tonight, if I was free to do the things I might, I'm telling you true, I'd be anything but blue if I could be with you. If I could be with you 1 hour tonight, if I was free to do the things I might, I'm telling you true, I'd be anything but blue if I could be with you for just an hour, if I could be with you.